Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing good. Thanks for coming on tonight. We have a lot to talk about, a lot of crazy things going on in the world of bees. I'm going to um, give it a second or two before we really get into the meat of our discussion tonight, what I want to share with you all, and then we'll take a lot of questions. Laurel's probably going to share on the Hive Life Conference Facebook page and my personal Facebook page and rally the troops, so to speak. And actually, I have John Hill with Hillco messaging me right now, talking about some new things they have going on. So if you have any summer questions, let me know where you're from as well. Hopefully, we got some people from all over the place. So I've got my beekeeping shirt on today. This one's not striped like the other one, a little bit cooler. It says I'm a Maryland beekeeper, and I definitely am not. But when I went up to Maryland this last Saturday, they gave me one of these shirts, and it was really neat getting to meet some Maryland beekeepers up there and spend the weekend with Rob Pollock of Larabi's vaporizers. Some exciting news with what they're bringing out here in the near future. Hey, Be Original, Tennessee Tim. Hope you're doing good. And Anita, good to see you guys both back in here. Todd, hey, we're doing good. Crazy. Right now we have 400 people that have signed up to come to the Hive Life conference so far, and we're not even a week in yet. So it's going to be slamming, but it's going to be great. I've got just this massive list of vendors that are coming, and I've had probably 5 vendors I've never even heard of inquire about coming just in the last few days. So the conference is going to be really fun. Going to be a lot of different products there this year. All right, so we got a question. East Tennessee near Kentucky. My new hive swarmed 2 times. Now I don't think I have a viable queen. So frustrated. And yes, this is something that all beekeepers deal with, and it is extremely frustrating. You deal with it on the level that we're at too. Whenever I see a swarm that's even if it has already swarmed, I usually go ahead and split it with the cells to try to retard their desire to swarm a second time. It's not 100% sure why bees do what they do when it comes to swarming. Some colonies will swarm once, they'll leave cells behind. Those virgins will emerge from the cells, fight it out, kill each other. Then one of them that survives will go and mate, come back, and the hive's reestablished. And you lose a pretty good bees with a primary swarm, but you still have all the massive amount of brood that was left behind. The problem is when you get a secondary swarm, they're swarming with a good bit of bees that was the brood, and now you haven't had brood for a while. And if you don't have a queen come back, I mean, there's hardly anything left. Secondary swarms are devastating, and sometimes colonies do that, sometimes they don't. I believe it's more common on colonies that are excessively, at least visibly, what I've seen, colonies that are excessively packed with resources. And this usually is a result of beekeepers that don't have a lot of comb. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that, but we do hate swarms. So um, sorry about the ding. That probably is John Hill. Um, yep. Yep. John Hill's heading back from a trip that he's on. We were chatting earlier with Hillco. Hey, so we've got some Canadians in here. We've got we got a California guy in here too. I got Jose. Awesome. I actually got some California bee gear today. I'll be showing you all here in just a second. Do the queens make brood all year long? Depends on where you're at. Most places they'll take a break, but if you're in southern Florida, Texas, southern Louisiana, places like that, they may not take a break. It'll be pretty diminished still. They won't be raising tons of brood because they have to have pollen or bee bread to really be able to make a lot of brood. But in places like Hawaii, where there's forage year round, tropics, places where there's warm weather and warm food, yeah, they'll brood year round. Our queens typically stop sometime in late November and have very little in November. Kamon, what's on your hat tonight? So this is a Premier Bee Products hat, and I wanted to say For me to wear this hat really means that I have tried it out and really like it. I really am hesitant to recommend any products, especially wear their gear. This is my second year using Premiere. I've drawn about 3,000 sheets, and I have nothing but good results to say about Premiere. Customer service. Ultimately, the main thing is, does the product work really good? And it does. Now, I've used Acorn and had good results. I've taken Man Lake's Right Cell and coated it with my own beeswax and had really good results. So it's not that you can't have good results with other foundation. Some of the commercial guys that I know love Pureco. Ultimately, the best thing you can do for plastic foundation have is a really good wax coat. But the Premier stuff, I buy their regular. They've got two, I think. They got the heavy wax and the extra heavy wax. I just get the heavy wax, and my bees draw it out very, very uniformly. And there's a big difference between the last 3,000 sheets that I purchased from Man Lake that was single coated versus the Premier single coated. And it's made in the USA, and some of the foundation companies are not. So that's why I'm wearing this hat. Is I'm a fan. As a beekeeper, I'm not unlike anybody else. I have my favorite companies too, but I try to only recommend those that I feel like will do good for you guys too, because I have to really be careful. I can recommend some bad stuff and people buy it. Um, Tips to keep ants out. So inner covers usually have a gap between the outer cover, the telescoping cover, and the inner cover. And if bees can't get to that area and get up and patrol that, then the ants will totally build a house up in there. And this is the number one issue with ants and bees, is just the ants taking advantage of all that heat from the colony and occasionally be able to get some food or other things from them. But the bees, if they can patrol the area, I don't have ant issues when I don't use inner covers. But with the telescoping cover, they'll glue that down to the top of your box, and then you can't hardly pry it off. That's why some professional and commercial beekeepers typically use migratory lids. It's basically an inner cover and a cover all into one. But perhaps what you can do is maybe create a little bit more space between your inner cover and your lid, and your bees can get up there and patrol that area. You just want to make sure that it's not going to allow robbing. And you also don't really want to do that in the time of the year where you're producing a lot of honey, because then they could go up there and build burr comb. But you know what? I say that's okay. My all my lids have a 1/2 inch or thicker rim on them, my migratory lids, and I do get a little bit of extra burr comb on the top bars between that and the lid. However, it's okay. Scrape it off, throw it in the wax melter, get some more beeswax, and it helps them patrol the area for small hive beetles and keep the ants out and all that stuff too. Yeah, so Hansberry honeybees, talking about Premier, their heavy wax is thicker than more double dipped. I don't know what it is compared to the Man Lake Right Cell single wax, but it's got to be at least double the thickness of what I get on Man Lakes. And the price point is like the same. By the way, they're going to be at the conference again this year. Last year, they had 15% off all orders. And of course, you didn't have to pay for shipping. And for bigger orders, you could get 20%. They're going to have some other stuff there this year. That was pretty awesome. All right. Let me scroll back up to get to some questions. Oh, happy Father's Day. I forgot that was tomorrow. So Jose says, what type of wax do they use on the foundation, Cayman? They use A.H. Myers capping wax. And I've seen the blocks and I've smelled it. That's one thing about the Premier Foundation that really stands out also compared to some of the other companies. Like, I'm especially comparing it to Man Lake, because I've been buying a lot from Man Lake when it comes to the foundation, because Kelly's is so close. I could drive up there and get loaded frames and foundation, and boom. Problem was the bees didn't like to draw it. But the difference between the Premier Foundation and the Right Cell is, I mean, the Premier, it could be a month later and you walk into the room and you can smell the wax on it. It's just so strong, crazy strong. I think the quality of the wax is significantly better. It's capping wax and it's more malleable. So I think that's part of it. And I do like the fact that the cells are thinner. And you do get more cells than you do on the right cell. The acorn is pretty comparable when it comes to cells and all that, but there's a big difference between the right cell. One thing I've noticed is about a year after using right cell, it gets you kind of if you bend the sheet a little bit, it starts cracking. And after a year of the acorn, it's still flexible and not brittle. So it just seems to be a better product all the way around. But again, you can use other things, but I definitely have been nothing short of very pleased with Premier Foundation. Anita says we need rain here, Northwest Wisconsin. Oh, clover blooming, so nectar flow is going despite having less than an inch of rain for the month. You, well, hopefully you get some rain, Anita, and please send a little bit of it down here if you can spare it. Everything's really drying up. Our flow is basically over, though. But my garden would appreciate it very, very much. But I hope you get some rain very soon. What's the best way to get into my hives and for them to not be so aggressive? Just replace the queen. That is one thing that to do. There's a lot of reasons your hives could be aggressive. It could be because a skunk is feeding on them at night. You can maybe see scratch marks or something like that if it's low to the ground. That will stir the bees up. Sometimes bees, when they're in the shade a lot, will be a little bit crankier. I've noticed. I don't know why this is. Sometimes it's genetics. Sometimes it's the beekeeper. I know when I was earlier on in my beekeeping career that I was a lot rougher on the bees and wasn't using the smoke as often, maybe as I should, or maybe using it too much. So just kind of look at what you're doing and see if there's something that you could do. But if it's not any of those other factors, then yeah, requeening is really your only other option. Ooh, the kids just went out and picked some of our black raspberries, and these definitely got some good pollination. Oh man, those are so good. Sweet and just tart. From New York here, Hive is queen cells and told they could swarm, added another honey super and switched 2 frames, could avoid a swarm. So Rebecca, um, if it is indeed swarm cells, adding space typically doesn't retard that because what bees do, how their whole being runs is off of stimuli and what the entire colony is feeling at the moment. So if the bees have decided it's time to swarm, until you can do something extreme to get that stimuli going in the direction of we've already swarmed or this or that, they're going to keep going along that line of thinking. So whenever I'm trying to get rid of a swarm, I've got to get in there. If I can find the queen, I get her, shake, take some brood, shake some bees, make a split. If they have capped cells, I go ahead and do that. It's a pain, but I mean, what have I done there? I've literally have made an artificial swarm there. So that is kind of breaking up that stimuli of swarming because it's just a controlled version though. So I'm not losing my swarm that way. So there's a good chance if you don't watch it that they could still swarm on you. Sometimes adding more space and doing some manipulations will change that, but if it's a good strong colony, I seriously doubt that'll do much. Mm. They should not have brought me these. These are so good. If this was like a black raspberry crisp, oh, that would be so amazing. So a lot of people have just come in, so we're going to be talking a little bit about the Hive Life conference here in a little bit. Got several updates, and you can ask questions on that if you'd like to. 400 people have signed up so far in less than a week. The vendors are pouring in, and I've got a ton of work to do, but with the conference, however, we're focused right now on honey production as far as pulling that off, putting on mite treatments, requeening a good portion of the operation, making splits, trying to get some YouTube videos out. Haven't been very good about recording videos lately. Just I need to clone myself, but I don't think if I had another clone in this room, we wouldn't get along very good. I can tell you that right now. All right, so I got some of these right here, and these are made in the USA by Motherload. They're planning on coming to our conference, if nothing crazy happens. And this is a massive frame feeder right here. This is their 2-gallon model. And you can see it has the supports right here and it has some edges. So I started off with 1-gallon sized feeders, and I really like something bigger. Bee space is pretty important. I've been told that the 2-gallon one doesn't have as good of bee space, but I don't know. I put it in there with 8 frames in a 10 frame box and thought it actually looked pretty good bee space wise. And over here I have the 1-gallon. They've got their cap and ladder system, and this of course is a traditional one. The 1 gallon's a little bit too little. I feel like, when do I need to just feed a gallon? Whenever I get into my feeding season, I want to have the capability to put on a lot of weight if I need to. It makes it a lot more convenient for myself and the bees. So this cap system, you got your cap up here. It pops onto the sides on these clips. And then down in here, I don't know if you can see that, but it angles down this little ladder here. See if I can get the thing back out. Wow, that's on good. Anyways, it's just a ladder that goes down into the corners, and the bees can walk all the way down it and drink. I don't know how well it will work if the bees propolize it up, which would be my concern. I think I'm not going to actually buy these right here, but I'm just gonna maybe put a stick float or two, and they've even got some for mediums. Isn't this cute? Um, all jokes aside, I know some really good beekeepers that keep bees in nothing but mediums, but this is really a short, stubby feeder right here. But I do love the fact they're made in the USA, and I know guys that have some mother load stuff that decades old, so that's pretty impressive. Hmm. All right, Canada. Speaking of Canada, we have over a dozen people, not including the speakers, that are from Canada coming to the conference so far. I've been really pleased with the response from our cousins over the border in Canada coming to our conference. So that'll be really interesting to see some different ways of beekeeping and get a talk and chat with the Canadian guys. Yeah, it's a great feeder, Lyndon Johnson. I think so. I mean, I have some frame feeders that I purchased that aren't as made as heavy as these. They were made by um, Dayton, and they're 18 years old and still working. And these things, I can tell by looking at them, they're built with a thicker caliber of plastic. So yeah, that's one thing I love about the frame feeders because they don't they're not in the sun, right? So they don't take any UV damage unless you set them out, and they last a long time. The issue is drowning, but there's so many other feeders that'll drown bees. And honestly, if the bees are healthy and you have a couple floats in there, they're good. I've had it where I don't use any floats and they're good. A lot of it depends on the circumstances on why bees drowned. Temperature, the feed, how many bees are in the feeder when you pour it in there on them. A lot of that kind of stuff. Hey, Bearded Bee Works. I actually was when I was at your place, I was looking at the mother load feeders that you had, and that kind of made me had to call them up and look at getting some for myself. So Steve Chubb says I still wax foundation so I can cut queen cells and make splits. I actually put in some wax foundation not too long ago. I haven't had a chance to do the video, but I have a hive that has some comb honey frames in it, and it's actually got beeswax foundation. It's been so long since I had put regular beeswax foundation, and I just been using plastic. But I know why, because it took me to do 10 frames. Probably 20 minutes, probably about 2 minutes to a frame because I'm not really good at it. And I can pop in, gosh, I don't know how many plastic foundations I can pop in that time. A lot. All right, some folks from Ireland. I'll get to some more questions here real soon, but I'm going to make a few announcements and things I want to hit real quick. I almost missed this one earlier. Um, Middle Tennessee here. When is the best time to pull honey supers, pappies, bees? So, great question. Middle Tennessee, I would start pulling them in the next week or two. And it depends on your flows, but most people, the majority of Tennessee in the South is starting to experience dearth. Robbing's going on here now. Might as well get it off while the getting is good, and get it off so you can then focus on if the bees need a little bit of feed just to keep them, pushing forward a little bit harder to keep a bigger population, and especially controlling those mites while they're still lower. Get to it and get that done so you can have a big, healthy, strong colony that's very clean going into late August and September, where you start getting the fall flow, and they can go in with some natural food and hopefully a really good winter cluster. And then next year you can do it again. So I like to pull my honey supers in June if possible, early July at the latest here in Tennessee. Now there are some guys like Gus and other people that are in either the Memphis area or in the Smokies that have a different climate, and they have agriculture like soybeans and cotton and other things that will extend their flows. And of course, in the mountains, they're a couple weeks behind us. So they're still in flows and have sourwood and stuff to look forward to. And we don't have enough sourwood here to even fool with. All right. So, like I said before, 400 people come to the conference. That's awesome. We've got all kinds of vendors, literally everything that you can think of, big extractors, little extractors. Like I said, I was talking to John Hill earlier on the phone, and they're already gearing up for a lot of new things for this year. They were one of our vendors last year. And so I'm always looking forward to seeing what, especially the mid-sized companies are doing. The big ones usually don't surprise us that much. The a lot of times all the actions happening with the mid-sized companies, and I've got some really cool products I'll be releasing soon in some YouTube videos. But I wanted to show these and this one just because it's pretty cut and dry. It's a frame feeder, but that is an option. We're going to try to have a bunch of those at the conference. Now, Thursday night, a lot of people have been asking us about that. What's that all about? Thursday night's just a meet and greet. It's going to be like 3 hours, probably from like 5 to 8 p.m. The vendor, it's only going to be in the vendor hall. Vendors will be doing demos. They'll be selling products. Most of the vendors have told me they're going to be loaded for bear. So they're ready to go. A couple of them are not sure if the, after a long trip, if they want to do it, but I bet after they see the crowd of people, they'll open up their booth. But regardless, they'll still be available the next 2 days. It'll be a time to get autographs, pictures with Bob, all that kind of stuff. And honestly, I kind of put it in there for myself because last year I didn't have a lot of time to network and say hi to people and all that stuff. So this is an opportunity for me to be able to get to see you guys a little bit more and have a little bit more free time. So um, that's great. This year, you'll notice with the conference signups that there's two prices. There's a non-meal price, and then there's a meal price. So if you want to save a little bit of money, $20 per day, you can not get meals and then go down the road, and there's several good restaurants very close by. Um, so some people are electing to do that. Right now, everything is by check. It's $10 off right now. After July 14th, everything after that will be by credit card or PayPal. Laurel handles all that kind of stuff. Okay, so hey, Mike Barry, I was actually talking to somebody about a video of yours just earlier today. So I hope your ears weren't burning too hot. Kamon, does the conference center offer discounts for hotel rooms? So if you'll look at the website, there are hotels, one section called hotel and something another, and you can go to that. And there are 3 hotels that we've worked with to have some discounts. The one that is attached to the conference, unfortunately, is also an indoor water park, which if you like that kind of thing's fantastic, but they'll only drop the price down to like 150 something a night, which is crazy. The rooms, we've been in them. They're not bad. They're not great, especially for 150 bucks, but it is attached. You can walk from your room right to the conference center. So that is nice. We do have one like the sleep in and another one. that they average out about $60 a night between what, everything 60 $65 a night. And they're good ones. Probably actually better than the more expensive one. And we're working with about two or three more hotels to get more because the rooms are starting to already fill up pretty fast. So yes, we do have some discounts for sure. Oh, is somebody saying go Buckeyes? I didn't actually see that, Chris. Is Randy Oliver going to come to our conference? Well, it's not from a lack of trying. I did invite him, but he doesn't want to do a lot of in-person meetings right now. I don't know if it's due to busyness or anything, something else, but can't get him there. I've also got Michael Palmer that I'm trying to get there. However, we do got a pretty good lineup this year, and you guys can go to Hive Life Conference to see who we do have, and some of them you haven't probably heard of before, but that's good because I really think some of these guys are on the cutting edge of doing a lot of important things and are up and comers into who's who in beekeeping. Hmm. All right. Hey Patrick, I'm glad to hear that you're having some success with the queen rearing system that you were able to get 8 to 10 on your first try. That's awesome. Raising queens is one of my favorite things in the world. Speaking of raising queens, for those of you who came to our conference last year or have watched stuff on YouTube, one of the guys that's kind of been circulating around, it's kind of like a bad penny, just keeps turning up. That's Corey Stevens, and he's in Missouri and working on a different strain of VSH than what I grew up with around 15 odd years ago. This is a more it seems to be a much better strain according to what I can tell. And I'm fixing to try out a bunch of that, it looks like, and hopefully see that they are controlling mites a lot better than what I have. And I'm really super excited to see how that turns out. So long term, um, I would love to see a bee that was 100% resistant, but my expectations aren't that grandiose. If I can get some bees that'll give me a month and a half to 2 months, um, longer before I have to treat, or when if I keep my treatment the same way that I've been doing it now, which is what I plan, then just the mite loads are lower when I treat. It'll just make my treatments that much more effective because instead of trying to maybe kill 1,000 mites, I might maybe only killing 600 mites with the same dosage. Makes it much more effective to keep them under control. So I love having multiple modes of action for controlling mites, and hopefully his strain of bees will do that. And I'm excited to see how well that works. Yeah, Francis, I haven't been really happy with Dayton for a while. Dayton, the 20 years I've been in beekeeping is just super lethargic. It's really a sad situation. They could be so much more. The last thing I purchased from Dayton was like $1,600, and it didn't work. And I had like four other pumps, so it's not like I didn't know my way around a syrup pump, but their pump didn't work. That they couldn't help me out with it. It took them 4 months to pay me back. And the thing that bothered me the most was they never tried to sell me another one. They didn't go, "Oh, we're sorry that one didn't work. Let's just replace it and ship you out one." They didn't even try to keep my business. They just eventually got me my money back. And I went to another company and bought a syrup pump from somebody else. They didn't they're riding on the coattails of their predecessors, but we'll see how long those coattails are. Okay, going back up through some questions. Okay, question: frame feeder or buckets? If you're on a budget and can only get one or the other, thoughts? Oh, that's a hard one. Those are the two best options for a professional beekeeper, in my opinion. I don't like feeders and this is just from a standpoint of having to go through hundreds of colonies. I don't like feeders that I have to yank off every time. So bucket feeders fall into that category, but at least they're on the outside of the lid as opposed to pulling off a lid, then having an inner feeder and having to yank that off and then put that on. If you're only doing 5 hives, it's not a big deal. But when you're trying to crash through a yard of 40 to 50 colonies, that adds a lot of time. And even the Apame feeders or the Saracel feeders or a lot of those feeders, you can still have some bees that drown. So I like a good frame feeder with some good floats. That's my preference. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. They take up a couple frames of space, but I like the fact I can technically leave them in there through winter, and I have done that before. They last a really long time. They last longer than the buckets or really anything else that I'm aware of. The buckets are a good feeder, though. You can keep more frames in with the bucket feeders, and they'll take a bucket a little earlier in the season than they will a frame feeder because the frame feeder's off to the edge of the cluster, and so the heat's rising up, and they can't quite get to this. But if there is a bucket feeder, they can warm that up and cluster around the bucket to a degree, and take that. So there's advantages and disadvantages to everything. If anyone can invent a perfect feeder, they'd be a millionaire. But there is no such thing. Personally, I've got bucket feeders, I've got frame feeders. But there's a place for both of them. It's just kind of like a lot of things in beekeeping. They're both good. Now, as far as what I would do if you're on a budget, you can buy those tent plugs that Bob Benny uses, and Greg Burns sells them at Nature's Image Farm. Um, you can get those tent plugs for like paint cans and whatever, and you can get your own buckets and drill some correct size holes and use those tent plugs, and that'd probably be pretty good on a budget, I would say. Or just wait till the Hive Life conference if you're coming and get them on discount. I think they were Greg's bucket and tent plugs. Everything was 22% off at our last conference, and of course, no shipping. So it's hard to beat that. Hmm. Kamon needs some thumbs up, guys. There's one. The Canadians are coming. The Canadians are coming. Yeah, James, that just doesn't sound as dangerous as the British are coming. The Canadians are, I think, a little bit nicer. I'm sorry to any British people that are watching, by the way. I have to be weird. Yeah, well, and all frame feeders, I mean, all frame feeders will drown some bees if the syrup temperature is really cold, and if it's really cool, or if it's really hot and you made it really hot and you burn the bees up, or if it's really cool and the bees fall in, their body temperature gets so low they can't hardly move. That can happen too. So I still occasionally see a drowned bee in a frame feeder, but a lot of times when I see any like high levels of drowning, like 50 to 100, there's something wrong with that colony. They're queenless. There's a virus, or there's EFB in there. Something's funky if I'm getting major drowning. Okay, I think I've got most of those upper comments. Trying to work my way back down, and got to say a big thank you to Larry, Lee's Bees. It's going to be awesome to see you at the third conference. So Larry's been with us since the first conference, and I really appreciate first of all him trusting us enough to fly 3 times all the way from Washington. And so he says, "Hey, Cayman, I made more splits and nukes than ever. 4 full splits and 8 nukes. Bees are growing like Godzilla, but I'm running out of drawn comb. What's the best way to get the girls to draw out the new foundation? Thanks, Hive Life 23. All right. So I don't know where you all are at in your flow, Larry. I hope I can see it down below, but maybe if you're like in blackberry blossom, because what's tricky with drawing foundation out is it does take some time. And if you're in the middle of like a massive blackberry blossom flow or a massive part of your flow season, then yeah, they'll start drawing it, but they can't draw it fast enough hardly to keep up with that nectar getting pushed down into the brood nest. So just watch out for that and make sure that your queens have room. But if these splits will have a much less of a tendency of swarming, because young queens really suppress the swarming tendency a lot longer than an older queen will. So, these fresh queens will make those young colonies very reluctant to start the swarm stimuli throughout the colony, and get that foundation on early. What I've been doing, like I've got 53 colonies here at the house, or 54, and they're not for honey production. So I put foundation on them even before they needed it. They started out as really small 5 frame nuke size colonies in April, and now I gave them a box of drawn comb, and then the next box was a mixture of mostly drawn comb with a little bit of foundation on the edges. And once they were about 6 to 7 frames in on that second box, I threw the foundation on. And even though they weren't quite ready for it, it was warm enough. Now you wouldn't want to do that if you're dropping down in the 20s at night, 30s at night. But once it's hot, go ahead and throw it on and let them get used to it. Let them get started on a little bit, even before they need the space. Because bees prefer, like in a 10 frame box, as they're building, they'll go more as a thin. They'll work on those middle frames first, and sometimes they'll pass the edge ones up if they can and go up into that foundation box. So just get the foundations on early, and let them start drawing it, and just kind of watch the bees. And then when your season's almost over, this is how I get most of my wax. The easy way, that's an really almost swarm proof, is I know my season, and I know by the time the end of May, June is up, we're not having any swarming going on unless we've done something we shouldn't have already done. So I don't really worry about swarming. The bees have plenty of space, and every hive that I can gets a box of foundation. And if I don't have honey on them, if they're not a honey production colony, we feed them. I've been feeding colonies for 3 or 4 weeks, at least 3 weeks. Yeah. And my colonies that don't have any honey on them, because the colonies are so big and massive, they can draw foundation so quick, and just get that little bit of feed, gets them started, and then I just keep feeding, feeding, feeding. And I've probably drawn, just here at my house on the 54 colonies, I'd say I've got to be working close to 500 new deep drawn combs. From now, if I wanted to fed, it wouldn't have happened. But use those big populations towards the end of the flow while you can. So if that means yanking your supers off as soon as possible and getting those foundations on, do it. And of course, using deeps, it's easier because I pull up a frame of larvae or eggs up into that foundation when I'm ready, and they have to draw next to it basically, especially with a little bit of feed. And just get yourself some combs for next year. With mediums, I haven't tried it yet. I need to put two mediums on and then pull up a frame of eggs that's a deep comb. The bee space won't be quite right, but I'm wondering if it'll be enough to get those mediums started really good, and then I can drop that deep down below and put it all back to mediums in those boxes. Try that out. Always something weird going on. Whew, okay, take a deep breath. Yeah, that is, Canadian dollars is a little bit different, isn't it? Steve Chubb, hey man, thanks so much for donating yet again, to everything that we do here, and we appreciate you so much. There's a lot of things that we're trying to get to you now, and there's a lot of things that we have working for you guys towards the future. I wish I could share some of the exciting stuff that just got me giddy. Some of it should be released within the next week or so, but a lot of these things, you promise companies that you won't say anything until a certain point. It's hard to wait though. I feel like a kid getting ready for Christmas. And there's one product that's being developed right now. It's got a patent out on it, and man, it could change the small hive beetle game. It really could change the small hive beetle game, but it's got to go through EPA and all kinds of different things. And this could literally take over a year, but it's exciting to see the moves happening. And I appreciate you supporting what we're doing. And as soon as we can, we'll get you the fundamentals, but we'll also get you the basic information, and the cutting edge information. Hmm. When is Laurel breaking out the microscope? Great question, Laurel. Honestly, it's not the poor girl's fault. And if I can take a moment of y'all's time and kind of explain where we're at right now, maybe you'll forgive us. So right now, what I have on my list to do is get all the information available to the vendors for the conference and coordinate with at least 70 different ones. At least it's going to be 80 by the time the month's up. So I've got to get that information to them, get all the registration, get that organized. Of course, we have all the flooding amount of checks for the conference. We're trying to work on the youth sponsorship. We have several kids that have already sent in their YouTube videos and their um, little articles they wrote for us about what they love about beekeeping, and do that. I've got thousands of pounds of honey to pull. I've got to wire up my Cowan spinner and auger right now, and I'm not good at wiring. Thank goodness Laurel is. But we're gonna have to wire that into our fuse box. Yes, we're running off a fuse box. Ugh. I need to get that changed one of these days. And I know other people have issues too. Don't get me wrong, but between the YouTube videos, the conference, we are doing the research yard. I feel like a total turd for not having more information on that. I have pictures, I have videos of what we're doing now. I've even got the data on the alcohol washes from this year. I've got information on last year. I just don't have it compiled in an appropriate manner. Thank goodness one of the guys is starting to help me. He's only doing this year's stuff, so I got to get last year's, and I just got to do a video on it. Um, and I've got a plethora of companies to do product on. So please don't take me as a whiner, but this is not even all that we got to do. I've got to at least drop 150 queen cells, make splits for those in the mating nukes. Um, I don't know what in the world I'm thinking. Basically, we've got too much going on. It's just a matter of what fires get put out. So it's not Laurel's fault really that the microscope video hasn't happened. It's her husband who has taken on too much work for what he really can handle. So, um, I promise though, I'm going to stop pushing so hard and focus on what I have. Um, oh, geez. So horizontal bees. With Ricky Rourke says, Kamon, we will be giving $150 off our horizontal highs for pre-orders for the Hive Life conference. Looking forward to seeing everyone. And man, that is really awesome, Ricky. I mean, and then you get free shipping, and those suckers are two by construction, so they're big and they're heavy. So that's awesome. And thanks again, Ricky, for doing that. I know that was one of the folks' favorite booths to stop by and see some unique hives. And I'm going to be pulling the honey on my hive soon. And as I pull it out, I'm going to do a video on it because that hive is just stacked with honey. And yeah, you totally can keep bees in a long hive or a horizontal hive. Ricky makes his hives in the just east of here. I can't remember if it's at North Carolina. I think it is. And horizontal bees. That's a great deal. Okay, where's the best place to get hive bodies with frames? I've got so far everything I've got so far has been from Dayton. You can get some pretty decent stuff from Dayton. I've heard that it's good stuff. I don't know where you're at, Jason Powell. Some of my favorite wooden boxes that I've received recently have been from three companies. I really like Hillco's boxes. I like Dogwood Ridge's boxes, and I like Miller Bee Supplies boxes. And they have really unusual sources. Oh, this is something I almost failed to mention. I'm going to be in Evansville at the HAS, the Heartland Apicultural Society. I actually won't be speaking, so I'm just going to be shooting the breeze the whole time and having a fun time listening to speakers. I'm scoping out some people is basically what I'm doing, and also the honey judging system they have there. I'm looking at maybe having them at our conference. But I'm going to be bringing some stuff up. I'm going to be bringing brand new wax dipped boxes with me. They're fully assembled and 22 bucks each, wax dipped, cooked for 20 minutes to my specs. So if anybody needs that, I'll be heading up to Evansville on the 28th and going to Kelly's as well. So anyone who is on along that path and wants some boxes, I can meet up with them and drop those off or see you at the Evansville conference. As far as where to get yours from, again, I really like Dogwood Ridge, Hillco's boxes, and Miller Bee Supply. Those are three boxes that I've actually seen, held, and used and like, but they may not be close to you. So you got to go also what's cost effective. Hmm. Yeah, I've never tried the rapid feeders, Eddie. Just the frame feeders. Yeah, I do hate trying to keep buckets clean as well, bearded bees. Wow, I'm just now getting to the bucket questions. Are there any honey vendors signed up for the Hive Life? So I want to try to have two types of my honey at it. Bob Benny's planning on having a booth this year, and he's mentioned having his honey. Um, I imagine I've had actually one guy from overseas mention he might want to bring some honey from, oh crud, Turkey. I'm pretty sure it was Turkish honey. I'm pretty darn sure it was Turkish. And we've got people from other places bringing honey. So I don't know yet how much honey we'll actually have. I actually hope we have quite a diverse amount for sale. And also this year we're going to have a honey exchange. It'll be more details on that later. But if you bring a 1 pound jar or several, you can exchange it with other beekeepers of 1 pounds. That should be on the website before too long. Have you ever tried Russian bees? Yeah, I tried those Russian bees and the USDA Russian bees about 13, 14 years ago. They were good. They definitely take a different management style. I really wouldn't say I know a lot about them. They just really weren't for me. Think carniolans, but much more aggressive in their tendencies towards conservation and shutting down during dearths, and a little bit more swarm happy, but it's not always a bad thing. My friend Gus Mitchell, who has a YouTube channel as well, he runs Russian bees. He's actually working with the Russian bee program. He has a live chat from time to time. If you had any questions on Russian bees, do's and don'ts, he totally would be the guy to talk to about that. Yeah, Gus Mitchell. And I think, Gus, you're still in here, aren't you? Hey, Cayman, what's your thoughts on single versus double brood boxes these days? Great question. They're both really good. Single brood definitely will get you more honey because they will keep all that brood and a good bit of the pollen down in that single brood nest. And so that next box up is honey to take, but they will have some bee bread in there, which isn't the end of the world. But sometimes I hate taking that away from the bees because that's really more important in our summer dearth than the honey is. And but if you do single brood management, when you yank it down to that single brood, man, you've got to feed. Not 3 days later, not 5, not 2 days. You need to feed almost within 24 hours. It's better to feed immediately, unless you have a flow going on. But if you don't, that massive colony that just produced that crop will just crash in a few days if you don't give them more food, because they just don't store a lot in that bottom box. That's brood and bee bread, and that's, they'll have maybe 2 or 3 pounds of honey, and that's not enough to sustain what's probably 8 to 10 pounds of bees in there, whatever it is, 12 pounds, whatever. I don't know. It's a lot of bees in there. And bees eat a lot, and they can't go without food for days on end. They'll cannibalize the brood in there. They'll send all the old bees off, and you'll lose a big portion of the population. Double deeps are a lot more forgiving for newer beekeepers. They have their own set of issues. One, I don't like having to look for swarm cells over 2 boxes. That's the advantage of the single brood. You get more honey, and you know where all the brood is. You know where the queen's at. You know where the swarm cells are at. If you have the single brood dialed in, it is a total awesome way to run a professional business. However, you've got to run it right. It's like a race car. And if you don't do it right, it's going to backfire and you'll get more swarming, and you'll have issues. Or, and if you don't feed them fast enough, you'll actually really hurt your bees. So the double deeps are a lot more forgiving, and you can produce a good crop with double deeps too. You just tend to leave more honey for the bees, which is not necessarily a bad thing either. Um, so it's really a personal preference. I did double deeps for probably 16 years, and the last 4 I've really started doing single brood more, but it's definitely a lot more tedious. Both have their place. Yeah, I love the Venom Suits that are being talked about. Hoover Honeybees is talking about them as well. I love my Ultra Breeze suit. It is a great suit. I've had it for 4 years. I have just used and used that thing 12-hour days, 8-hour days, and it just keeps going. And it's built so much heavier. All right, questions. I'm having a hard time reading some of these tonight. I'll get some glasses. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, they're not talking to me. James McNally, let me know what you think of that Ultra Breeze bee suit. I love the thick gauge of the outer fabric. That's one of the things I've noticed from. I've got a vented Dayton Guardian and a Man Lake vented suit. I've got basically all the big guys, and then I've got an Ultra Breeze, and the Ultra Breeze is definitely thicker built. It's also made in the USA. It's one of the pricier suits, but I do feel like what you pay for, you get. The only thing I feel like that makes the Ultra Breeze that could make it better is to have one of the round veils mounted on top of it, and you just got that zipper as you sweat, and it builds up a little bit of corrosion on that brass, or I think that's what it is, brass zipper. You can purchase some really cheap zipper lube or butter or whatever it's called, and you can use beeswax, but I find the stuff you buy is better. And if you do that, your zippers will just one zip real fast, but also they'll last very very long. Excuse me. I knew I should have eaten that barbecue. Kamon, do you put bleach and sugar syrup? I have used it a couple times. I really try to avoid it like the plague. There's some research on it, and it's really not that bad if you don't overdose it. And I don't use it like as I'm feeding. So if I make like a 330-gallon tote, and like I have out there for feeding my operation, I won't put any bleach in it or whatever, and unless we have a bunch left over. So if I go through and I miscalculated and I still have 75, 55 gallons left in there, and I'm like, crap, I'm not going to be able to use this for at least a week. Um, for whatever reason, yes, I will totally put that in there and save my investment. Um, but we never put it in with the stuff that we feed the bees if we can help it. And usually by the time that the bees are fed that later, most of that is off gassed and really um, broken down. However, it does its thing. There's other things that you can use too. They're just so expensive, like the feed additives that you can buy at any bee supply store. However, they also can promote robbing. So in a dearth period, I don't really like using those, but those can work to retard it too, but not as good as the bleach does, and definitely not for the price. Okay. Hey, no problems. Just keep me posted on that, James. I'm interested to hear your opinion up there in Canada on this stuff. All right, your favorite electric uncapping knife. Hey, Laurel, do we have that one in the house? Waiting for the boss to show up. Do we have the? Did you already package that knife? No. All right, good deal. Drum roll. What do you guys think of the shirt, by the way? I'm not a Maryland beekeeper, but I went and spoke in Maryland last Saturday, and it was a fun trip. I'm not moving to Baltimore anytime soon. Sorry, any of you Maryland folks, but I flew into Baltimore, and woo, too much technology and not enough beekeepers. However, I did have a good time chatting with beekeepers, and that was fun. And I like the shirt. Just when I walk around. When I walked through the airport and people saw this shirt, they were like, "Oh, you're a Maryland beekeeper," and I was like, "Well." And then one of the guys came up to me as I was going through the bag check and all that stuff, and he was like, "Oh, you're a beekeeper, huh? Well, that's great. I love watching a lot of YouTube videos on beekeeping. If you do you ever watch any beekeeping YouTube videos?" I just laughed and I said, yeah, I watch a few myself. I got a kick out of that one. But okay, here's the knife of the best knife in the industry. It's not cheap, but you buy once, you cry once. This is made by Pierce Beekeeping, and it is made in the USA. And I've got a video on this knife. You can watch it, and it cuts through wax like butter. It's set at the right temperature. And I don't know how long this will last, but there are some guys that I know that have had some of these for 30 years. and that's pretty good. I also like the fact that they're made here in the USA. So I got to say a big thank you to I'm probably gonna the M Quorum 3486. Thank you for supporting us. So loves your videos. I have a colony that has taken home in a maple tree in my yard. Been waiting to get into beekeeping. Is this my chance? Miller's is 30 minutes for me. Oh, so do you have a swarm in your yard, M Quorum? Um, if you do, um, you got to be careful though, because most swarms are really gentle, but sometimes you can get stung by them. So you need to have a veil on, and if possible, a suit. This could be your chance to get into it. If not, you decide it's not quite ready to take the plunge, you could contact a beekeeper to pick it up for you, and maybe they'd be willing to let you sh- m- come to their place, and you could buy a bee suit, offer to do some menial stuff. Every beekeeper could use a hand on some stuff, and they'd help let you get through a hive or two, and then you can kind of see, what it takes, and but yeah, this could be your chance. Is it actually a cluster of bees in that maple tree? Okay, wow, that just bounced on me. Do you think honey is a good barter item? Are you kidding me? It's one of the best barter items in the world. we the Godfather and politicians, they slide money under the table and bribes. We're not like politicians and the mafia. We slide honey under the table, and it works just fine. Laurel just shook her head. Okay, will we at least pass it over the top of the table? Might not be under the table, but yes, we use honey all the time. It works wonders. I have contracts with our farmers that let us put bees on their yards, and we give them the option of a case of honey or $120 a year in rental fees. And we put like 50 colonies to a yard, and we take up a good bit of space, and we make good honey off the yards. Heck, one of those yards I'll probably do a 3,000 something pounds of honey that I'll pull off of just that one yard alone. So that's a good bit of money, and we appreciate good yards and farmers that let us get on there and beat their grass down, and we try not to rut things up. So we've yet to have any of them take the $120. Everyone goes for the honey first, and absolutely, and they act like they're getting the better end of the deal. And I'm like, man, this is a great bee yard, and these people don't complain. This is great. Farmers are great to have bees on typically because not all farmers, but as long as your bees are safe from cows, and your farmer's not actually spraying pesticides or something like that. Some of my farmers use herbicide responsibly, but that's okay if you're careful with it. Um, and that's all right. I have no issues with that. Farmers do what they need to do, but farmers usually make great places to put your bees because the farmers are used to pain. That's why I like farmers. Farmer gets stung by a bee, they're like, I just smashed my hand with a hammer. I just got kicked by a cow the other day. Pain comes with the farming, and they don't sue your butts off if they get stung by a bee. At least not good farmers, real farmers. All right, back to questions. Yeah, Pure Sun Capping actually came to our conference last year. And keep in mind, if you're planning to come to our conference and you can wait on anything, um, there's a good chance that you can save shipping and a percentage off at the conference. Just FYI. So a lot of people come and buy hundreds and thousands of dollars, and we'll have about 10 semi loads of product on the sales floor. Massive extractors, uncapping knives, boxes, wax dipped equipment, everything. We want everything in beekeeping there. Looking for ideas to keep my bees from getting robbed. Lost 2 hives last year. Well, the first thing, Lanny, that you got to do is keep them healthy. Strong bees have a good offense and a good defense. So the best thing you can do is make sure the mites are kept in control. You have a good queen in there. You can also reduce the entrances, and you can make what's called a robbing screen, which will help. And basically, the bees have to crawl up the wall and then fly off. and they can't get direct into the entrance. So the robbing bees are confused as they try to get into the entrance, but there's a hardware cloth screen you can get online. If you have little carpentry skills, you can make these very easily. And I'm sure you can buy them out there as well. But the number one thing to keeping bees from getting robbed is to keep the colonies healthy. It's not always easy to do, but strong bees and healthy bees are hard to kill as long as they have plenty of food. And you can reduce the entrances down a little bit too. Um, but right now, I've got robbings going on here if we're not careful, and I've got 54 colonies entrances wide open, and I'll probably shut them down to about 6 inches. But they're just so big, they'll beard up like crazy if I close it off too much. All right, I've got to say a big thank you to Taylor Jarman. Thanks for coming on. Um, Well, I appreciate that, Taylor. I wouldn't say that ours are the best videos out there, but we try to be amongst some of the best videos on YouTube and try to do our best. And we feel like we're not even halfway to where we could be. We're just getting started on the education as we're balancing out our business. I was part-time 2 years ago, and I quit my job last year, which broke my heart. Um, and now this year we're restructuring things. The conference has really kind of thrown some monkey wrenches into being able to balance out the YouTube and the bee operation. Because if I didn't have the conference, I could really focus on the YouTube more. But we are trying to make a better effort this year to have better, more concise videos, and always looking for helpful stuff. So thank you so much for saying that, and just know that we don't feel like we've arrived, and we appreciate you all support more than you guys know. And let's see who's messaging me now. I don't know if Michael Palmer is messaging me right now. So that I don't that one to me might that name might not mean a lot to you guys, but Michael Palmer is one of my heroes. He's also a gardening buddy, so bee buddy, garden buddy. And Michael Palmer, if you haven't looked at any of his stuff, he doesn't put a lot of stuff out on the internet. But when I was learning how to actually be a good fundamental beekeeper years ago, Michael was one of the few guys that was a voice of reason. Michael's a lot more than I am. He's like, you know, don't be an idiot. Take care of your bees. He's an old school beekeeper, but I absolutely love it. And yeah, we were just talking about garden stuff and a little bit of barrels, where to source barrels and stuff. Okay, getting back to questions. Good day from Australia. All right. Well, uh, howdy from Tennessee. All right, getting to scrolling through, trying to make sure. And if I missed your question, you can post it down below. Just keep in mind, I do miss some. I'd say about a third of the comments when I go over this afterwards, I don't see them on the first time through. I somehow I missed them. This thing does jump around on me. What paper? Oh, this one? Oh, the kids needed some craft paper. This is the office, got all the craft stuff. Oh, okay. Tomorrow's Father's Day. Laurel says they gotta make some stuff for me. That's nice. Do you recommend a particular refractometer? So when I started out, I just got one of the ones on Amazon. I believe I have it in our Amazon store. Um, it's not our product, but it's one that I purchased off of Amazon, and it worked good for me, and it still works good for me. But I was able to get a deal on a digital refractometer that gives us instant readings, and it's just a little bit better. It ought to be for like 300 odd bucks, but I was able to get a pretty nice discount on it. So that's what I use as a digital. Man, I can't remember the name of it. I'll probably do a video on it this year when I'm showing our honey line this year. But yeah, you can get a pretty inexpensive refractometer from Amazon, and that'll work. Maybe Laura will post that here in a little bit. What can I do to reduce robbing? Feeding sugar syrup in North Florida with an hour robbing is bad. Okay, so there's no way to fully reduce robbing. If the bees are weak and other bees can gain access and they can smell the syrup, they're going to try to do it. So, what I like to do is feed late in the evenings if I can. So, let's say we're using a frame feeder. That's one thing I like about them is I open the lid just to the side, fill them up really fast, and if I'm careful, I don't spill anything. And it's high up in the double deep or triple deep or whatever we're at. It can be in a single too, and you want to make sure that your bees don't have too much space for what they can guard. But then I'll shut that back up, make sure there's no gap around the lid where the bees can get up into. And I like to do that of a night, late in the evening. And if I can, and then they have all night long to clean up any little spills that I may have made, a night to rest and guard things up. And that really helps retard it, I think, instead of doing it early in the morning. I know sometimes your schedule just doesn't allow that. Um, Try not to have, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I don't use strong smelling feed additives like Honeybee Healthy and stuff like that, because one, it's darn expensive. Two, I don't know, is it really helping my bees at all? I really don't feel like it is. And three, I feel like it promotes robbing because and bees can get used to smells. And after they smelled Honeybee Healthy and robbed it out once, even if they can't get access to the colony easily after that, if they can smell that wafting out of the colony when they're fanning it and dehydrating it down, they know what's going on in there. So, I had a little bit of robbing going on today. I think I'm going to lose a colony in this yard. I said I had 54. I probably have 53 now because that colony looked like it was getting bludgeoned. But honestly, it was a colony that was the queen felled in it. Um, she was alive, but she couldn't keep the colony healthy and in good shape. And I was going to break it down anyways and just combine it back with another colony, but I didn't get to it fast enough, and the dearth hit in the last couple of days, and they just robbed it out. I fed yesterday evening, and I didn't even put feed in that colony, but it just started the robbing tendency, and they went in there and just sacked them. Okay, so it's not a swarm. They're residing in a tree. Well, that's a whole nother can of worms. M. Corum. There's videos out there on trap outs. I am not a trap out guy, or definitely not a guru. There are techniques out there. There's also a forum called Bee Source. Not a whole lot of beekeepers frequent it, but there is some old, backdated information that you can type in for trap outs if you wanted to try to trap them out. The issue is a lot of the trap outs will pull some of the bees out, but if you don't do it right, you won't pull the queen out with them, and that's what you got to have. So it could be quite a bit of work. I wouldn't say it's the best way to get into beekeeping, but I know some guys who literally that's how they started out. They caught swarms, they did trap outs, and they're pretty crazy, awesome beekeepers, and that's how they started out. So, um, up to you, man. Be on the lookout though. If those bees survive for a while, if the cavity's not that big, they may swarm out of that tree. Some tree cavity sizes are just way too small. Are you going to do a video on a Hilco extractor? So I don't think so, at least not anytime soon. I did have one a year ago to do a video on, and the problem is that the supply and demand was awful, and is mainly because in California they had locked up all the shipping docks and barges and stuff, and so Hilco and every other extraction company couldn't get stuff in, and customers been waiting for weeks and weeks. And it was about this time last year, and one of the customers that Hilco had in Tennessee wanted that exact extractor that I had, and I didn't have time to use it because we hadn't pulled our honey yet. And he's like, Cayman, I know we wanted to do a video, but this is the customer that's been waiting, and he'll come and pick it up. And we will, as much as I'd like a video right now, we can't even get extractors in. So that's kind of how that all did not work out. However, that may happen in the future. I definitely don't need it for my operation. I've got a Cowan 60 frame line, which is my baby. However, there are some guys that do have some Hilcos. I will say, John has changed his line since that extractor, and the extractors now have some upgrades. Um, for foreign extractors, they seem to be really well made. I have not used one, but I have yet to hear bad things about them, especially for the price. They're a good extractor. Mm. And they will be at our conference. We'll also have our newest American extraction company, Thorn Manufacturing, with a whole line of stuff. That's going to be fun to see. Uncapping tanks, wax melting tanks, all that stuff. And there's probably gonna be like 7 or 8 different companies with extraction equipment at our conference. That's one thing I really want to keep pushing, is you guys are able to come and get the full experience of what's out on the market, so you can see it, touch it, and determine, is this what I need, and make an informed decision before you buy. Okay. Oh man, that just jumped on me like crazy. Wow, that jumped. What the? Okay, here we are. Wow, you guys have asked a lot of questions. What can I do to reduce? Okay, no, I already got that one. uh, Feeders inside the hive. Happy Father's Day. Hope you're doing good down there, Andy White. In the South, what's your recommendation for the size of an entrance to the hive this time of the year? It depends on the size of the colony. If we're talking a strong double deep, I'm going to leave the entrance open 6 inches and just be careful not to start robbing. If it's or I'll leave it all the way open. Sometimes that's just my personal preference. I kind of feel like if my colonies are so weak they can be robbed out, it's my own fault. Um, I shouldn't have let them get that weak. But then again, you do have some splits that you make, and maybe it's a 10 frame strong colony. And so we want maybe a 3 inch entrance. But we also got to make sure the colonies have enough ventilation. If colonies get overheated, they will abscond. So to help beat the heat, you can put things on your lids, like an extra lid to kind of give a little bit of deep shade, or you can put corrugated boards, like you can get a political sign or a Cash Express sign. They keep putting them on our trees around here, a bunch of litter bugs. And but you can take them off the trees and put them on the lids and keep the hives cooler, and then reduce that entrance down. And then for a 5 frame nuke, maybe you want an entrance that's about that big, but they've got to be able to ventilate the colony. It's hot this time of the year. Get heat indexes here 100 degrees. The humidity's up. Those bees are hot natured insects. And if they get too hot, the colony will just abscond. They're like, we can't control the temperature in this hive any longer. We got to go find a different place to set up shop. So just depends on the size of the colony. Hey, Access Through Christ, I appreciate your videos so much. I wish I could send you dollars. Hey, it's no problem. Some people can, some people can't. Watching the videos is a big help too, and hitting the like button and commenting actually is also helpful to our channel. When anybody comments, when anybody hits a thumbs up, that helps our videos do better. It tells YouTube that hey, people actually like this weird beekeeping stuff, and it shares it to other people who would be interested in beekeeping. So there's a lot of ways that you can help, and being on here tonight is one of them. So I appreciate it. Hey, Edward, I actually saw your letter today for the Hive Life conference, so you should be getting notification via your email that you are ready to rock and roll at the conference this year. So, Jose, good to hear from you, man. Wax melters, any recommendations? I have two 55-gallon barrels of Burcombe from our nukes as we slow queen production and clean them up for next year. Ooh, so I love my Thorn wax melter. It is exactly what I wanted. And I got the prototype. And so his newer ones are even bigger and they're built even heavier. And mine's 18 gauge and 14 and 16 gauge still. You pay a pretty good bit in the beginning for it, but the immersion heater that he put on it was what I love. It's a Watlow immersion heaters. They're top of the line, in my opinion. I've had 5 of them at one point. I just sold one piece of equipment that had a Wattlow immersion heater. The oldest one is 40 years old and is still heating things up and keeping the temperature within just a couple of degrees of where it's supposed to. So as far as, and I think it keeps its value. Is it a little bit too big for what you need? I don't know. I mean, if you have two 55-gallon drums of Burcombe, and I don't know if you end up getting honey cappings or anything like that too, or if you're planning for that in the future, Jose. But this thing is great. I've done 300 pounds of wax through it so far, and it just gets all the wax out of the slum. So I really like it, and if you use it really lightly, you can clean it out and use it for honey bottling later. It's a lot of work to clean them out, but it's totally doable. I hope to do a video on mine like that in the future. And again, Thorn Manufacturing. You can actually go to their website, Thorn, THORNE MFG.com, and see what they have. They will be at the conference, the full line of their equipment. You gotta be careful shipping those queens out this time of the year, man. It is hot. I'd hate to be shipping queens right now. It's just got to be done. But whew, I hope we can get some cooler weather for all of us. That's for sure. Would a pollen patty would you pollen patty a fresh nuke install if it already has sugar water 1 to 1 with limited space in the comb but a week of off and on rain? So Rancor, I don't know. Where are you located? Maybe you can comment below and let me know if this is it early spring for you? Because if your bees are building up for the honey flow, and yeah, you got a nuke installed, and you're wanting to build them up, you can. You just got to watch the small hive beetles. So for a nuke, if I have small hive beetle problems, you may not. I definitely do. Then for a nuke, I wouldn't risk putting more than maybe if it's a good strong nuke, a quarter pound, maybe broke up into two pieces so they get up more surface area, and put that in the center, right up, right on the top of the frames and the brood nest, and that could help them out a lot. Pollen patties can really help fill in the gaps in nutrition. But watch your bees. Are they bringing in a boatload of pollen on the days they can fly? You can look in the frames. Is there a good bit of bee bread in the frames? Definitely in early spring, pollen sub can be extremely valuable, and I'm hoping to start feeding pollen sub even here in summer. You just have to be careful with the small hive beetles, that's for sure. Bradford String Instruments. Hey, is now a good time to make splits? It's a good time to make splits here in Tennessee. Where are you at, Bradford? That is a lot of Burcombe, Tony West bees. Um, yeah, Jose. I don't know how many bees Jose runs. Yeah, I think he does a couple thousand queens or so. So, Flower Street Farm Bee says that was a great interview with Michael Palmer. Any interviews lined up in the future? Thank you so much. That wasn't maybe a normal interview where you talk just primarily about beekeeping and you let the other person do all the talking. That was an opportunity for me to actually get a connect with Michael and share that experience with you guys. I had a few people say that they actually didn't like that style of interview. However, I really enjoyed it. It was a chance for me to get a hangout with a guy that I look up to, and I was glad he was willing to do it. As far as do I have any interviews lined up in the future? We are slammed right now, working till like midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning. I try to sleep in to catch up on sleep, but I know I've got stuff to do and I can't sleep in. And I love what I do, so that's part of it too. I mean, it's not like I hate my job; I love it. Um, but that sometimes makes you pile on more work, right? So I don't actually have any interviews in the foreseeable future that I know of. And some of these guys that I would really like to get, um, you have to book them a ways out. So I try to keep more of that towards the winter time. I've been invited to speak a lot of places too. That's pulled my time away from it a lot because I've been like going to Maryland and Kentucky and Arkansas and a few other states. I'll actually be in Missouri 3 times this year. Um, that'll be interesting. That will be interesting. I'll actually be coming to Missouri here in about a week. But anywho, Jed says howdy from Wisconsin. So Jed's the guy that makes the thorn manufacturing. He's a thorn manufacturing guy. You know, he's a good example of even someone who's not super intelligent can do good work if they try hard enough. I'm gonna pay for that one. Rise up lights. That is funny. That does sound almost like it's Australian. Um, that is funny. From your test yard, what is the best mic control with Honey Supers on? That would be Formic Pro. Now you can't use any of the other treatments with Honey Supers on. Oxalic acid is supposed to be it's EPA approved, but it's not on the label yet. Apabioxol is supposed to make that legal to treat with oxalic acid vapor with Honey Supers on, but oxalic acid is such a soft treatment. Formic Pro is really the only one that I think would knock the mites back significantly with Honey Supers on, but it's really temperature sensitive, so just watch that. I do like the Formic can be good if the temperatures are good. If it's too hot, it can cause a lot of damage to the bees. I like the Thymol Apiguard product, but it's just you can't definitely have your supers on when you're using it. You can treat and then literally pull it out and put your supers on at the same time. They say that will work just fine. How late in the year can I graft queens in North Georgia? Really, that depends on the quality of the pollens and how many drones, the quality of the drones in your area. In North Georgia and some of the mountainous areas, I think you could go through July and you could still graft queens in August and September. I've grafted queens here in Tennessee in September, but the percentages aren't near as good in August and September. The nutrition's not as there. There's not as many drones, and what drones there are, especially if the bees aren't taken care of, they're being really fed upon heavily by mites at that point. Just because you can raise them late in the year doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get great percentages and they're gonna be as great queens. But only you can really know that with your flows. If you got good nutrition and your bees are clean and healthy, heck, in northern Georgia, I'd say you could graft till September, no problem. It just depends on the nutrition. Is it effective to treat Varroa with formic acid from the top of the frames? Well, I mean, it's a gas, and what you want to do. So yes, I believe that's how they recommend it. Is you put it on top. So if it's like a double deep, you put it on the top bars. You'll have to read the label. There's a couple options, like one pad or two pad, but every time I've talked to the people at Formic Pro or Nod is the company that makes Might Away Quick Strips and Formic Pro, is that it's best to add a super or a rim on top because you want good air circulation in there, good even air distribution in there of the acid will help make sure there's not any hot spots, and it uniformly kills the mites and also uniformly doesn't get concentrated doses on maybe some patches of brood over the other. But you just have to look at the label. I'm sure it's online and see what they have to say. Hello from New Brunswick, Canada. Tom Lutz has the $1 million question in regards to equipment. Buy it or build it. Ooh. Well, this is an interesting question right now with lumber prices being through the freaking roof. It depends on how cheaply you can get lumber. It also depends on how cheaply you can get pre-made stuff. Right. I was looking at Man Lake the other day because someone was asking me, box prices for boxes from the guy up in North Tennessee that does Appalachian Hivery. They're wax dipped boxes. And Man Lake unassembled boxes are like $24 one at a time. You can get wax dip boxes completely assembled, wax dipped, probably going to last 15 to 20 years at least for 22 bucks. Now I know you're in Canada, but I don't know what's available to you up there. Sometimes you can find cheaper stuff from the Amish, and you can't build stuff for the price Amish build theirs. But if you have a buddy that's in a sawmill, the main thing I recommend, whatever you do, if you build your own, if you buy it, take care of it. This is a mistake I really struggle with early on. I see this happen so often, and some of it's due to lack of experience or trying to keep it on the cheap. Take the time to really paint your boxes good. Do whatever it takes to preserve them. Heck, you can even use some other things to seal the boxes in, but seal them really good. Go the extra mile because good boxes can last 15 years. If you don't take care of it, the box could last 5 years. And you know how much boxes have gone up in the last 15 years? 15 years ago, I could buy an unassembled commercial box for like $7. And now from that same company, it's like 20 something. So it's crazy. Now I guess it might have been $10 if you're buying one at a time, but I remember buying a couple hundred for $7 a piece. I do like building my own equipment. That's one of the things I miss the most about growing to this scale is I have to buy all my stuff pre-assembled. I don't have time for it. But I really enjoy the carpentry aspect of beekeeping. Whenever I get a chance, I really enjoy that very much. And there's some things that you can save money on building yourself, and there's some things there's just no way you could. So pick and choose. Sorry, that's really not a clear cut answer, but I love getting my stuff built for me these days. Saves me so much time. But then again, we do buy thousands of things at a time. Is there an issue to receive red or blue queens and nukes in a yellow year? Should they be younger? Well, it depends. I mean, if they're using a paint on that year queens, I mean, you can use whatever you want. To me, it would make me a little skeptical because why in the world are you painting it red or blue when this year's collar is yellow? Um, but I mean, if they're still young queens and they're painted, it doesn't matter if they're pink, as long as they're actually young queens that you're getting. Um, you know, a lot of my queens aren't even marked. I try to mark them as I find them, but if I don't have my pen or I don't have the time, I don't go and hunt them down and mark every queen. Ooh, Laurel, why did my queenless split not make their own queen? Why do I not see the queen I introduced that was accepted, but the bees are still trying to store and draw as normal until they die queenless? Francis, great question. Nobody fully understands. There's a lot of dynamics. So why did my queenless split not make their own queen? First of all, maybe they did, and she went on out and got eaten by something on a mating flight. I really could use some water, please. And why do I not see the queen I introduced that was accepted, but the bees are still trying to store and draw as normal until they die queenless? When bees get old, long in the tooth, they are very reluctant to accept a queen. So even though you're introducing a queen, the queen you introduce could be the world's best queen. It could be phenomenal. And you stick it in there. If those bees are old, a lot of times what they'll do, because the colony's so out of balance and they rate a queen's worth based on the performance of the colony. So she gets in there and it's like a bunch of people in a critical situation. They don't always react rationally. And that's what old bees do. And they'll let her lay for a little while and then they'll kill her. They're like, you know what? This colony is so out of balance. Pheromone production is not good. This queen's obviously not getting the job done. Let's kill her and requeen her. And we'll take some of the brood that she laid and we'll just start all over again. We'll just forget it. And you know what? The colony just keeps dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. This has been going on for hundreds of years. It is, well, with beekeepers understanding that it's going on. And it's not going to go away. It's one of the biggest frustrations that we have. But we we'll try to requeen a colony. But if it's really old bees, we will not give them a queen. Basically, in your situation, you made a queenless split. That means by the time a queen was made and could have come back, those bees are old. And then that queen didn't even come back and work out. So then by the time you were able to get another queen and introduce them, they were so old. The chances of them accepting a queen, probably 1 out of 10, maybe a little bit better than that. Old bees stink. So in that situation, Francis, what I would do in the future, this is a lesson I've had to learn the hard way. If you have a queenless split like that again and it doesn't work out, combine that with another good colony. Combine them back, then purchase a queen. And if you're going to need to make a split, pull out frames of brood, food, shake some bees in, and put it in a new location. All the old forager bees will go back to the original colony. Now you're left with a split that's nothing but young bees. This turns that from 1 out of 10 acceptance rate to like a 90 something, probably like a 95, 99% acceptance rate. Young bees love a queen and they will accept queens very, very good. And I also give them a little bit of feed when I put a queen in. Bees, if they have good nutrition, plenty of young bees, balanced pheromone profile, that all those things that bees love makes it easier for queens to be accepted. Kamon, are you feeding with Canadian rocket fuel? James, I have just about started. I wanted to run a good test, so I'm not feeding it yet. I haven't got things set up yet, and I really want to run it on my production colonies, not my splits. And I want to use it during my dearth a little bit further along because we're just starting. So now that we have no nectar and pollen coming in, or very, very little of each, very little. Once they still have all the bountiful stuff they've socked away from a good spring. So I want to let them get a little bit further along in the dearth and then use it and see how if I can see a difference and see how well it goes. But I'm excited by it. I've told a lot of people about it. I told one of the researchers I was talking with in Maryland about it, and he was very interested in that and how that may affect honeybee gut health. During robbing, I've lost queens. Why? Well, robbing can mess up the whole pheromone profile. It puts stress on the colonies. Stress equals someone's got to take the fall. If it affects the queen's laying ability or her pheromone ability, the colony will supersede her. Or if the robbing's bad enough and the robbing bees get in there, they could kill her. They'll just get around her and sting her and kill her, rip her apart. So robbing is very stressful, and then introducing queens, it's harder to introduce queens during robbing season than it is during spring. Bees are so busy bringing in resources. It's always the old bees that are the hardest to convince to accept a queen. Really, what they need is not to see a good queen. They need to see plenty of brood and a balanced colony that is a byproduct of the queen, and also a good spread of her pheromones. So she needs to be able to produce a bunch and she needs ambassadors to help her out. So that's why with these splits that we make to introduce queens, and we want a lot of young bees, because what do those young bees do? They go to the queen, they accept her, they get some of her mandibular pheromone, they help spread her pheromones around the colony, and they're literally ambassadors for that queen. It's not all of the pheromones just waft through the colony. Several of them, some of them are a physical exchange, and you want bees that'll go up to her and not kill her to get that pheromone and spread that around the colony. Whew. I would wax dip the boxes. I never want to paint a box again. And by the way, I said it earlier, I'm going to be heading up to Evansville, Indiana here in about a week. And I will be going with a buddy of mine who runs Appalachian Hivery. And it is assembled deeps and medium boxes that are wax dipped for 20 minutes. And they're $22 a piece, assembled and everything. They're dipped to the specs that I liked when I was dipping my own boxes. Now I just buy my boxes from him. And if you guys need any wax dipped boxes, we'll be heading up 65 and going up to Evansville. And you guys can meet us somewhere along the way, or we'll see you at the Heartland Apicultural Society in Evansville. I don't know why the heck they have a conference that's not on a Saturday, though. Gee whiz, that makes no sense to me. Um, oh yeah, James. Woodworking is one of the reasons I was woodworking long before I got into beekeeping. I started woodworking with my grandpa when I was about 8 years old, and by the time I was 13 years old, I had some of my own tools and was carving out stuff that really wasn't that nice at the time, but I always loved it. I wanted to be a carpenter for a while, but then I got into beekeeping and whoo. Um, Leon Unlimited says, "Thank you for the water, Laurel. Thank you, thank you, Leon, for helping me remember to appreciate the beauty and the brains of the operation." Man, that just jumped. There we are. Hey, Jeremy Lindsay, no big deal. I figured it was just a bad connection. We had, when I'm driving through that area, I have some bad connection too. How many times have I been stung this year? I have no clue. I know I got stung at least once on this arm, and then I got one on my wrist right here today. So that's two. Um, but, I don't know, 50 times, 75, 40, I don't know, somewhere in there. Do you ever use old honey to feed back to your bees and water it down to one and feed back to your hives? Yes, Matt Kirkland. I have done that. So what usually when I have done this is when I have spilled honey on the floor. Occasionally we have spills. Heck, one time I spilled like 5 gallons or something on the floor. And just you can't let that honey go to waste, but I also can't feed that to people. So we just feed it back to our bees. I usually cut it down half and half. It's not quite 1 to 1, but I'll use 1 part honey to 1 part water and feed that back. But I want to make sure that the bees are able to consume it quickly because it does ferment pretty quickly. Not really probably quicker than maybe sugar syrup, but I don't want to waste it. So uh, definitely will feed that back to the bees. But I would never feed anybody else's honey because you can get EFB and AFB and other types of things can exist in honey. And getting it from either a store or from somebody else could get diseases spread to your colonies. David Edwards. Well, thank you so much, David, for coming on tonight and for being a part of our community. And thank you so much for supporting us. And I don't know where you're from, David. You maybe have said that before on here. It's hard to keep track of everybody, but if you have any questions, please hit me with it. Francis, thanks for coming on and have a good night. And take care in New York. And we hope to see you in future live chats and other things. Don't be a stranger. Yep, that's what you're here for, Leon. Well, somebody's got to do it. What joints do you like on your boxes? So I've used rabbit joints or finger joints. I've used rabbit joints. I've used box joints slash finger joints. I excuse me. I was given a what's it called? Box joint one time. They all work. I do like the box joints best from a structural standpoint, but they also have more end grain. So from a rotting standpoint, like I feel like the box joints that are normal that you see often, they're better at taking a little bit more abuse on the corners before they start losing their squareness. However, they have more end grain, so you have to worry about a little bit more rotting on those. However, I've used all of them, and it's worked good. The main thing with the box is you want it glued if possible. It's easier to glue the rabbit joints. You can just run a thread all the way down the inside of it, piece them together, and use some drill bits. I'm a firm believer in overdoing it. When it comes to your boxes, take the time, seal them good, keep them sealed. I hate painting, but if you have to go that route, you have to just to get it done right. And you could do like Bob Benny does and purchase copper napathate. And some people are afraid it'll hurt their bees, but it's been tested. It will not hurt bees after, if bees fall in it, yeah, it's going to happen. The same thing with paint and anything else. Um, but it will dry into the boxes and then you paint over that. And that works really good as well. But whichever joint, but I prefer box joint to answer the question. Ooh, someone asked a hard question. Hey, Kiri Martin, I hope I got your name right. We're looking forward to seeing you at the Hive Life too. It is going to be insane. For those of you who have seen some of the videos, we really didn't do a good job getting good videos this year. I apologize because what we showed was not near what was there. And, we were just so busy. I promise I'm going to have better videos next year so you guys can see what you can expect. But I'm going to literally try. We're going to have the best show in North America. We will stop short. It will be nothing less than that. I'm going to put a lot of work into it. It's going to be fun. That's the main thing. I speak at a lot of conferences, and it's sad. Most bee clubs and conferences are so boring, and there's no reason to be so. We all love bees. We're all excited about beekeeping. If not, we wouldn't be doing all this crazy stuff where we're getting turned into human pin cushions by insects and um, sometimes losing bees and getting um, you know reinvesting into our bee operation and all that. I mean, we love bees, so how can we not have fun at a bee conference if it's put together properly? That's what I think. And but you go to these and they're just boring, 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 and they should be fun, fun, fun. So I promise it'll be just like the Beach Boys song, fun, fun, fun. But we won't take the T-bird away. I don't know. I would like to have one of those. We might take the T-bird away. um, yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of Beach Boys. My dad was from the Gulf. Mm. I have not been stung yet. Oh, I had not been stung by any insect until I got into beekeeping. I'd never been stung by a yellow jacket, a wasp, or anything like that. A sweat bee, if that counts. But I never been stung by anything until I got into beekeeping, and then that changed really fast. And I'd heard from for years that like wasp stings, like red wasp and stuff, hurt a lot worse. But I had been stung by bees for like 6 or 7 years until I finally got a red wasp sting. Ooh, and yeah, those things hurt a lot worse. I'm glad our bees don't feel like that. It's like getting hit with a ball peen hammer. Okay, so there was a question on. Oh, it jumped on me again for Pete's sake. Well, give me 1 second and I'll find the question back. Okay, nuts and bolts beekeeping. Thanks for coming on again. And what do you feel is the best money making opportunity in beekeeping? Think about that. It depends to a degree by area because some areas are just so capable of producing honey. But then it's not just that. What's the capabilities of being able to move a lot of that honey and market it at a premium price? For example, in Hawaii, they can produce 200, 300 pounds of honey on the big island a year. Everybody and their brother can too. Small island. If it wasn't for tourists, they probably wouldn't sell even what they do. And the big guys have to barrel it up. They have to buy barrels from California, ship them, barrel it up, and then ship them off the island. So yeah, they can produce it, but only if you're tapped really well into the tourist market or shipping do you actually make a premium on that. So honey can be an option. I think for folks that are closer to cities, big cities, where you have a lot of people that are making higher incomes and are a little bit looser with their money, then you can make a good honey business and do a lot of niche stuff. There, I used it properly, Laura. I didn't say niche. I said niche, and that's an ongoing argument that we have. I think it's niche. However, I think nukes for most beekeepers, nukes. If you keep your bees healthy and keep them strong, you can still you'll get a little bit of a diminished honey crop maybe from making all the nuke splits, but there's a big demand for high quality nukes. Queens, I wouldn't say that. Um, Queens, I feel like for your average beekeeper that has a shorter season just isn't as good of an idea. It's not that you can't do it. I think nukes. That's my number one. Honey would be number two. My goal from here on out, now that we got the conference and all these other things going on, I can't devote as much time to my bees. We're gearing down, but my goal is to produce 10,000 pounds a year now. So that's where I want to stay at. We can produce more than that if we want to, but I'd really like to kind of keep it a little bit more manageable, do about 10,000 pounds. And, we're selling our honey. Like today, I dropped off 1,000 pounds of honey at various stores that resell our stuff. And I'm selling them 11, uh, I'm selling them jars for 5.50 a pound. It's ready to go, and then they mark it up and sell it. And I dropped off 4 cases at one, like 3 cases at another, this over in another one, and I make these honey runs, and I don't have to individually market things, so my time's worth a lot of money too. So you got to figure out what it is in your area. Do you have access to premium honey cells and lots of it? But for those who don't, nuke cells would be the ticket. And then the trick with nuke cells is getting your name out there so people know that you have good stuff. It's a it's there's no easy answer, but it is a good question. And there's some guys like Gus Mitchell who focus on honey cells, and he's doing comb honey cells, and I'm selling beeswax. And mm, I try to stick more with bulk honey cells, and like I do 2 jar sizes, 2 pound, 1 pound. That's it. And then we do beeswax. We try to sell it in bulk as fast as we can and get rid of it and get the money and be done with it. So different business models for different folks, but it just depends on who you are. What did I say? 1,000 pounds of honey? Oh, 10,000 pounds of honey. Oh, I said 1,000 pounds of honey today. Oops. Oh, sorry. $1,000. That would have been a nice payday if I'd have dropped off 1,000. Yeah. See, what would I do without Laurel? I dropped off $1,000 worth of honey today. No, I'm not quite up to the 1,000 pound a day level. I'll leave that to Bob Benny. Getting on to more questions. I explain things in a very beautiful way. Laurel, did you hear that? Beautiful. Kamon, are you guys still going to do the Inventors Corner at the conference? And that's the plan, ET's Bees. I want to have a corner of the conference where people can bring their. It doesn't even have to be something they want to sell. If it's something they want to sell, that's fine. If they're going to be selling it there, they actually you have to have a booth if you're going to be selling a bunch of product. But if you're just wanting to show off your invention, whether it's a new type of bee lid or a different variation of a hive tool or an oxalic acid dealio or whatever it is, then yeah, and that will be free to set up. That will have tables up for that, and you can talk to people about your product and what it does, and then that'd be great. Hey, Thomas, thanks for saying so. Black Mountain, North Carolina, thanks for coming on tonight. Okay, Matt Kirkland, thank you so much, Matt, for supporting us yet again. And where was the question? I thought there's a question. It jumped around on me yet again. I thought you had a question with that, Matt, but maybe I missed it. If you have a question, Matt, just there it is. There it is. Thanks, Cayman. I just made that 1-to-1 honey to water by weight. I'm going to try to feed it back as soon as I pull my supers in a few weeks. I can't seem to find this info anywhere on the internet. Yeah, just watch it. If you're just using it for bee feed, um, then just make sure that they can, you don't have like a bucket feeder with one tiny hole and it takes them 2 weeks to be able to drain it out of there. You want to make sure they can, get it in fairly rapidly so they can, do their magic to it and get it back in the cells. As far as one thing I have thought of, I have some found comb honey supers, and they're not all drawn out. But I've got some honey that hasn't hit the floor, and I've thought about feeding it back and seeing if I can actually get them to fill the rest of that comb honey up um, with that honey that I feed back, because I'd really like to fill those out so I can have some comb honey to sell this year. I'm not wanting to do a bunch of it, mainly just for friends and family, but I've never done comb honey before. So I wondered about that too. Let me know, Matt, how it works out for you, and if there's any issues that you see. The only issue I can foresee is, of course, the fermentation if it stays too long, and also it could cause more robbing because, well, bees love the smell of nectar, and basically you're diluting it down to the nectar consistency. Lindsay says, today was my first time in a long time. I didn't get stung one time, but of course I didn't get into my main hive today. Yeah, it seems like we all have that one main hive or two. Seems like I have one per bee yard. You always you go around like 39 colonies, in the 40th colony, you always save that one for last because it's going to be an event. Okay. Hey, all new to NC, wondering, hey, so Yuri, did you move to North Carolina? Because what were you in California before, if I remember correct? So if that's the case, congratulations to moving more close to the promised land of the United States. There's a couple rednecks in North Carolina, but I'd say that that's all right. Can't be any worse than the politicians in California. And all right. Yeah, trying to plan the trip out to the conference. Well, that'd be great, Yuri. We'd love to have you. So, if you're in North Carolina, then yeah, it's right off of 40. You hit 40, hit the exit going Sevierville, Gatlinburg area. And then you just hit that highway and you stay on it till you get to the conference center. It's going to be at the Sevierville Convention Center. It's going to be massive. Um, like I said earlier, we have 400 people that have already signed up, and we're only like, what, just the fourth day, something like that. So that's awesome. And the vendors, of course, are seeing this, and it helps me be able to go, hey, I've got this many people already. And you don't want to just bring boxes and frames. You want to bring some extractors, don't you? And also broker some deals. Right now, I'm actually in negotiations with a couple companies on getting some really stupid good pricing on a few products. So we're going to try to help you save you some money, Gary, if you're able to come out and you need to buy some stuff. Earl Baker says no money and just honey. And again, it just really depends on where you're at. I would say that that holds true to many areas, though. But there are some guys that I know that they live in areas that average 150 pounds of honey a year. And in a bad year, they'll have 80 pounds, which is still pretty darn good. And in good years, great years, they'll have 200 pounds, and they live close to a big city or two that they can sell lots of honey quickly, getting, six, seven, eight, $10 a pound. A lot of them are doing like multiple ways. They have honey they're selling at farmers markets for like 12, $15 a pound. You can't sell as much at that price, but then they're selling some by the case, a discounted price there for like $8 a pound if you buy in bulk. And then they're doing like grocery stores and maybe only getting like $6 a pound. But it really it just depends. By and large, though, honey is probably not super reliable because you'll have some years where it's awesome, and you'll have some years where you're starving to death with honey. And that's again, any good business model needs to have multiple ways to make money. You can't be leaning fully on the honey crop because then if you have a terrible year with honey, you're up the creek without a paddle and two holes in the boat. So nukes and honey for us. That's what we do for our business. And my goal is 10,000 pounds of honey from here on out. Last year we did more than that. This year I think we're going to do somewhere around 10,000 pounds. And I like to consistently do around 10,000 pounds of honey a year, give or take, and do 200 nucleus colonies a year. That's kind of my goal. Yeah, you do need to open a barrel factory in Hawaii. Yeah, there's a lot of factories that need to be open in Hawaii. They probably wouldn't let you do it though, all the regulations. All right, Don Beard and hey Don, I was actually just showing this to everybody earlier. Someone asked it what a good hot knife was. So if that answers the question whether I've shipped this to you or not, no, I have not yet. But we do have the box ready to go. So the plan is to have it out Monday. Should get to you real quick. I'm going to let him try that out. So someone has insecticide problems, huh? I must have missed that one. If I have a poor producing queen and I can't find her, what are my options for replacing her? So what I would do, Jason, is get a queen excluder. And if it's like it's a double deep colony and there's like, 10, 11 frames of bees in there, kind of split the brood up between both boxes. Have you a queen ordered, put that excluder down in there. And then when that new queen comes, make a split. Um, and get that queen in the one that and the side that doesn't have eggs and larvae. So what you're trying to do with that excluder is isolate where the eggs and the larvae are. So when you come back in, you don't have to find the queen, but you will know that she's in one box or the other. And then what you can do is if you need more brood for the box that does not have the queen in it, you can just pull out a frame of say like capped brood or half capped brood and larvae or eggs, whatever. Shake that back down into the box that you know has the queen in it, and then just put that brood up there with that new queen. That's probably what I would do. And then you've got a split with that new queen in there, and then if you can eventually find the queen, then you can um, dispose of her however you see fit. Yeah. So the business is Appalachian Hivery. They wax dip boxes. They sell loaded frames and foundation from Premier Foundation. So you can get boxes loaded too. But when I head up to Evansville, I believe we're going to be able to fit at least 250 boxes on the back, and some of them are already um, paid for. So some of them, I think there's still a decent bit of them left on the load, though. I think 100. So and so you guys can, if you want, I'm going to be heading up um, north I-65, going up to Kelly's to get 3 totes of syrup and some other supplies. Then getting some jars, and then I'll be meeting some people at various places along the way and dropping off wax dipped boxes. So if anybody needs them, again, they're assembled and wax dipped, ready to rock and roll. They're commercial grade, which means they're really good boxes. They're just, they'll have a knot or two, but they're solid knots. They're not going to like fall out on you or anything like that. Um, I always buy commercial grade. Have you ever had a really wet year and never got any honey during the flow? Not last year, but the year before, we had a cold, wet year. And yes, we produced 40 to 50% less honey that year than what we normally do. It was a really bad year. Good looking bees. There was just they couldn't get out and get busy. And the plants had bad weather and they didn't perform well also. By the way, so I showed this earlier and I'll just do it really quick. I have some mother load frame feeders. I'm going to be using several of these in the future. I've got an order of 200 of them on the way, and they've got multiple different sizes made in the USA, and they're planning to come to our conference. And they also have some other equipment. If you call and chat with them for either ordering something or anything, remind them that to come to the Hive Life conference. They're wanting to, they're planning to, but it never hurts to have a little positive reinforcement. And if there's any products you want to see at the conference, contact the companies and tell them to come to the Hive Life conference. That's the best way to get them to come, is to hear from people that are customers instead of the weirdo that's trying to put on a conference. Oh, hey, Skipper. So when and where do vendors sign up for the conference? Great question. So in order to have all the details up, it's going to take me a while, and we've got honey and all kinds of stuff to do, splits to make. It's going to be a while before I get up. I'd say 4 weeks. So vendors won't be able to sign up and register and pick their locations in the vendor hall for at least 4 weeks. It will be on the website, and I will make a YouTube video of it as well. I will say verbally committed, I have at least 60% of the room already filled up. However, Skipper, you were one of the people that mentioned it to me before, and I have you on my board up here. So you're part of that percentage. However, I imagine it's going to fill up really fast, and we don't allow, really junky stuff in there. So we're not going to have Chinese sourced wooden boxes and wax dipped fake Chinese stuff to compete against all the high quality stuff that we'll have there. We try not to get any, like we get contacts all the time from Chinese suppliers that are literally just have the cheap stuff, cheap, 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 and trying to come to our conference. We don't do that. We try not to do that to any of the businesses that come. We want you guys to come in, have a good time, and make money. And also, so the people that come to the conference aren't sifting through a bunch of garbage either. But yeah, that'll be up soon. It'll be first come first serve on the vendor areas. And so how the conference will be set up this year is we'll have one really large room, which will have the dining tables, 2 big screens, microphone, the speaker in that room, and then we're going to have a vendor hall in the middle, demos, just all kinds of cool stuff. We have forklift access for you guys too, and also pallet jacks that comes with the price on it. And then we have another speaker room as well, so we'll have 2 speakers going at once, and it's going to be pretty awesome. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. What time do you pull your honey in Tennessee before your dearth? Well, Tomahawk Missile, if I wanted to pull my honey before the dearth, I would have pulled it at least last week or the week before. Post office is closed Monday. What is it? National Walrus Awareness Day? I mean, I know Father's Day is Sunday, but do they actually take off for Father's Day or something? I'm in the wrong business. All right. But we will have yeah, the vendors will have access to a lot of different things. I can't remember what I was thinking, but it probably wasn't that important. Do you raise post solstice queens, and do you feel they are quick spring buildup? I like raising queens here in Tennessee till about the end of July at the latest. Um, After that, I feel like the queen quality doesn't always go down, but the success rate definitely does. So post solstice is fine. Raising queens around the solstice is a good time. And the main reason, the solstice, I don't think really has anything to do with it as far as the time of the year. It's just the queens aren't burned out. I mean, queens that were raised in early April here have been through April, May, and then most of June, some of the heaviest brooding times of the year. And those queens have burned up a lot of energy. I still think if they're a good mated queen, they'll do fine the next year. But those queens that were made around late June, July, yeah, they'll have a lot of gas left in the tank if they're mated properly. And queens don't last as long as what a lot of people think they do. So, especially in the South where they'll brood for 10, 11 months, those queens aren't going to last as long as queens that may only lay for 5 to 6 months in a northern area. It's just a lot more demanding. Okay, let's see. Debating on making hives and more equipment or pull back to recoup. Tomahawk missile, let me tell you my experiences. And I'm not saying everybody should do this, but I'm bad. I still do this. I like to think that I've matured and gotten older and a little wiser, but some days I wonder. And my wife wonders even more than I do, I think. However, the biggest mistakes that I made early on with beekeeping was growing past what my capabilities were. I wasn't focusing on the mites heavily enough. I wasn't making sure there was enough nutrition. I want my bees running. I mean, I'm pulling lids right now, and we're talking ripped double and some triple deep colonies. Even our April splits are just massive colonies. It's what I want to see. I want them running through summer with a medium's worth of honey in there or sugar syrup. Most of it's sugar syrup, but they need to have all kinds of nutrition. I need to make sure that my mites are crushed below 1% going into winter. And if I take the time to do those things, I do so much better. My bees do better. But there were so many years I was trying to run 200 colonies when I should have been running 100. There's years I was running 450 when I should have been running 300. And you'll always lose more bees than you should when you expand past your capabilities. I don't know what that is. If you have the time to expand, knock yourself out. But there's nothing wrong with staying at 5 hives or whatever it is you're now. Maybe you got 50 hives. I have no clue. There's nothing wrong with being a small beekeeper, especially if you're keeping your bees well. Nothing wrong with that at all. One of my favorite beekeepers keeps less than 20 hives. Very sustainable, monitors his mites, produces big honey crops every year. President of a bee club and helps other people do the same. And then a lot of them end up getting more hives than he has. Great teacher. Don't go postal. I try not to, but sometimes it's too expensive to ship UPS. I haven't had any Pierce beekeeping discounts, Jeff. But at our conference, I know they are somewhat discounted. The only thing I think I have a discount on right now is 5% off of Laura B vaporizers. Um, yep. Which I'll be having some new news on his vaporizers coming soon, and I am giddy over this. I mean, ooh, yeah, this is going to be cool. Hey, James McNally, thanks for coming on, man. We'll see you later. Take care up there in June 19th, 1865 is the emancipation of enslaved people. Huh. Well, I didn't remember tomorrow was Father's Day either, so um, I don't really keep track of holidays at all. Oh, hey, Pierce. Yeah, I just saw your post now, and vendors will probably be able to sign up sometime in July. I just don't have time right now to do all the figuring that out. That's a problem with that we have right now is I'm doing a lot of this. Laurel is as well, but when it comes down to the vendors, that's my baby, and it's mainly because I'm the one that has a relationship with you and Hilco and Premier and all these companies. I know you guys on a first name basis, and and want to make sure that you guys are getting taken care of, because we want you guys to come back. And we also want to make sure that you guys do well. And I know people really enjoyed getting to see your stuff last year, but you're on my list of companies to contact when the vendor information is made available. What about filtering, handling, and bottling? I do a lot of that myself if it matters. Okay, I must have missed the first part of that. Maybe Stacy asked that again. I don't, or maybe you were talking to somebody else. I didn't quite get that. Okay, so Yvonne, great question. So when you order your ticket, we will send you confirmation once the payment clears and all that stuff. And but when you order your ticket, you should get. And it sounds like you already did a ticket. It'll have a barcode on it. And yes, you can either bring a hard copy, a piece of paper, print it out, or you can just show it on your phone. The phones worked great last year for us. We were able to check in. The original rush was. I'm starting to lose my voice here. I've been on the phone a lot today with some of the companies. We were able to run about 750 to 800 people in the original rush through in about 30 minutes, I think it was. It was really fast. It might have been faster than that. And this year we're going to have even more staff, and we've fine tuned it more. So, yeah, we should be able to get you guys in blazing fast. And we're also going to be breaking it up because not everybody will come for the Thursday night meet and greet. So, some people are going to come on the Friday morning and just not be able to make the Thursday night. So we'll have registration Thursday night and Friday night, break it up because we're estimating 1,500 people. I have some people that were right last year about how much we would have, and they're saying that we're going to have 2,000 people. I don't know if that'll happen. It's going to be a packed house. John Smith. So if I sign up for the conference, when will you need payment? So right now we're just doing checks only. We're doing checks only because that uh, we're not including the fees and that the cards do right now. So it's $10 off for people that send in checks. You can send it into the mail. What? Oh, Thursday night and Friday morning will be check-in. All right. I'm sure they figured it out. A lot of people have learned how to deal with my stupidity. Um, they've exposed to enough of it. Problem is my mind's about 3 sentences past my brain, my mouth, and it doesn't always line up like it should. Okay, what were we talking about? Yeah, there'll be a lot more honey entered this year for sure. Bottling honey while watching, sweet. All right, but yeah, you can get your ticket, print it, and have it ready to go. It should be no problem at all. I don't remember what I was saying. It must not have been that important. This was not a good year for catching swarms for me. How did you do? I didn't try to catch a lot of swarms this year, Walter, but I have not seen near as many swarms. And I think it's because last year in this region, we had a terrible fall flow. It was almost non existent. So bees that were not fed by people, I think a lot of them starved out. And that's nature for you. Nature some years is really good for bees, and nature some years will just really set the wild population back significantly. But beekeepers who step in and do their jobs as beekeepers, a lot of times are able to completely circumvent those losses or greatly retard what nature did not do for the bees. What's the farthest state you have sold honey to? I've shipped honey to California. That's the furthest that I know of. Oh, someone was asking a question about when do they got to send their check in. Okay, okay. Or send the money in. So right now until July 14th, we are just taking checks only. It's $10 off during this period because once we go to credit cards and PayPal and all that stuff, which is faster and definitely less work for us too, With the fees and stuff, it's almost 10 more dollars. And so we'll be increasing it, and the amount of the percentage they require for those electronic transactions. But you can wait to sign up till August or September or whatever. I don't know what we're going to cap it at. We've talked about capping it at 1,500 people. We may let it go past that a little bit. I don't know. We already have 400 people signed up so far in 4 days. How about Zelle? Yeah, I don't know anything about those things. I may be on YouTube right now. Laurel set this up for me. Okay. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. I am the worst person you've probably ever met in my age group with technology. At 33 years old, I have people older than me saying that I stink at technology. And I have all of my nephews, my brothers, my dad just look at me and wonder what happened. But technology just doesn't click. It's like algebra to me. And I actually try. That's the thing that frustrates me. I really do try. So now we've got a guy doing our website for us, and Laurel just does all the other stuff for me. Yeah, see, if you do PayPal, send it friends and family, it's free. We can't do that as a business. We have to do things on the up and up. The IRS is watching. So if you do it once or twice, I'm sure you can get away with it. You do it um, on over 1,500 transactions on a conference, the IRS will be knocking on my door, and I don't want that. So, right. It'll just be like any other website. You'll just go through. It'll be super easy. Can I barter honey for my ticket? Sorry, Flower Street Farm Bees. We actually just got our own honey, and we got a little too much honey right now. If we get short, we'll consider it. No Zell. All right. Yeah, Laurel said it was a disaster last year. We will figure out what works best, and we'll do our best to help you guys out. But also realize, literally, it is Laurel and me, and that is it. So we got to keep it simple for our sanity's sakes because we do have a bee operation to run. I know you guys get that. Um, how do wax dip boxes do in the South with our temperatures? North Louisiana here. So, Curie, they're not beeswax dipped boxes. Beeswax dip boxes will not work in Tennessee either. And it's not just because of the temperature, it's also because how they are on the atomic scale. So, the blend of wax that we use is paraffin and a type of microcrystalline, and they are rated between the two of them put together almost at 170 degrees. It's like 169. Um, so they can withstand a lot more heat. Beeswax is almost 30 degrees lower than that. And also, the microcrystalline is multi-chained on the atomic scale, and it does not want to come out of the box. It wants to stay in there. The paraffin and the beeswax are they're different. If you touch paraffin and you touch beeswax, they're hard, they're brittle. Microcrystalline is more gummy, and it has more bend to it, and that's probably the multi-chain effect happening. So these boxes are dips to where yes, they will be just fine in Louisiana, Florida, as long as the right type of wax is used. Well, and Yuri, maybe and one day that we'll talk to some of you guys about that. I'm starting to find some people to help out. It's just it's tricky. And also I'm not very good at delegating things because I'm a control freak. But I'm trying to get better. Trying to get better always. All right. So Mike Connolly asked about the difference between an emergency cell, swarm cell, super procedure cell, all that kind of stuff. So swarm cells can be on the sides, they can be on the bottom, they can be anywhere. Super procedure cells can be on the sides, they can be on the bottom, they can be anywhere. Emergency cells can, well, yeah. Emergency cells are a little bit more different because typically emergency cells almost always are from worker brood. So it'll start out as a worker cell, and they'll float the larvae up with royal jelly, and then they'll build a cell off of that. So to me, emergency cells are the easiest ones to identify. They're very, very seldom on the bottoms of the frames, and they're always not really coming off a queen cup. They're coming out of a worker cell. And emergency cells can still sometimes make really good queens as long as they are raising them only off of young larvae or eggs that become larvae. Um, Emergency cells can sometimes actually get you some older queens that are inferior. That's another topic for another time. Swarm cells and I'm really losing my voice now. Swarm cells and supersedure cells can be very similar. What I find that are usually the biggest differences is supersedures usually don't have very there's a percentage difference. So supersedures typically have more on the sides of the frames and less on the bottoms, and swarm cells usually have more on the bottoms and less on the sides. But we got to look at the colony, see what's going on. Identify how's the brood pattern looking. Is there a reason they should be swarming? Is it that time of the year? It's really what are the conditions in the colony? Are the conditions in the colony showing that this colony is in a position that they probably would think about swarming? Are they compact? Is there a lot of nectar and pollen coming in, packing the brood nest up? Are they running out of room, or do they have plenty of room? There's not a whole lot of a flow going on, and they're it's not. So to me, it's more like what are the conditions around the cells? The cells, the basic beekeeping books will say swarm cells are only at the bottom, supersedures are only on the sides. The reality of it is it's a whole lot more complicated than that. Hey, Doug Summers, night. We'll see you at the conference. So ET's bees, if I buy a ticket and I can't go, can I sell my ticket to somebody else? Well, you can. And there actually is a reimbursement on the tickets up to a point. So how it works right now, you get all your money back besides $10 up until, gosh, I think it's November. Yeah. And then between like November and December, you lose like 20% off of it for making us do it during that close to the conference and all kinds of stuff. And then after Christmas, there is no refund. If you can find someone to take your place, that's great. That's fine. But we don't do refunds now after Christmas because last year that was a pain in the butt. We were so busy planning on the conference, and also we've paid for a lot of the stuff at that point. So yeah, if you buy a ticket and it doesn't work out, you can just you got to let us know though, so we make sure that we can change the name tags, and someone doesn't show up wearing your name tag and name's Billy Bob, and then we have to get a bouncer. Hey Alan, good to see you. Good night. Can I use beeswax to coat my boxes in northern Kentucky? No, you really can't. The beeswax will just come right on out of the boxes, and it won't work good. The melting point is way too low on a hot summer day with these hot 100-degree heat index days. It'll just start coming right out of the box. Hey, no problem, Mike. I think I think I try to answer it as best I could. It's one of those. It's a little bit complicated, and to a certain degree, our videos we try to help, and these live chats we do, but to a degree, the experience is the only thing that can kind of get you to that point of knowing for sure. And heck, sometimes I still get a little confused by some of the stuff that goes on. Cayman, are you going to send a confirmation email after you process the checks? Absolutely. Give us a few weeks after you send it though, just because of high volume and busy time of the year. But we definitely will. So, what's the weather going to be like in Sevierville this year? Ah, gosh, we never get snow here. I mean, never's a long time, but when we do get snow, it's like, oh my goodness, if we got an inch of snow, yay! And everyone's excited because we get some snow. We had 9 inches of snow last year, but it was not at the conference center. Sevierville is here. We got a half an inch at the most. It was a dusting. But from like mid Tennessee, like my house to Kentucky and all that, like 9 to 10 inches of snow. That does not happen normally. Of course, it had to happen when we're trying to pull off a conference with 1,000 people. And then, of course, it warmed up and it melted off like it normally does in a couple days, and everything was hunky dory. But I will say, man, we were super thankful. We weren't sure what was going to happen, and still 90 something percent of people, like 98% of people, still showed up. And some of them ended up what was supposed to be an 8 hour drive turned into like a 12 or 13, 14 hour drive, and they still came anyways. And we were just so thankful that people did. And they still had a great time. Man, we had a blast. We had so much fun. A lot of good memories made the last conference. All right. So when you fill out your name tags on these things, keep your names simple. I don't want Billy, William, Robert, Smith the third on there because it won't fit. So if your name's William Billingsley, then put that on there. Or if you prefer Bill, put Bill Billingsley. But who names their son Bill Billingsley? I mean, I guess some people do. There's probably one on here right now. But then again, you could say who names their son Kamon. Fair point. And then this year we've added something else. It'd be like Kamon Reynolds, and then put your state on there. Don't put like your town and all that stuff. That way, when people walk up, they can go, or you don't have to put your city or your state if you don't want to. They can walk up and go, hey, I'm from, Kentucky too. And then you guys can say, hey, wow, I live 45 minutes from you. And that's where you can build some relationships. And who knows, maybe they'll be your beekeeping buddy and help you graft queens next year. You never know. Matt Kirkland, yeah, you were one of the guys that got there before the snow. And whew, yeah, I'm glad for you. That's a long drive from Houston, man. We appreciate you. I didn't see kids under 18 tickets. Do they need a ticket? Yes, kids do need a ticket. We actually don't allow kids under the 10 and under to come to the conference. One, we're going to probably fill up anyways, and we don't want, I like kids, but I don't want 200 8-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds through the lectures, you know, talking about, something, making a lot of noise. And that's just not the kind of, we want it a little quieter. So, also, food and how we work with that. And it just creates a whole bunch of dynamics that we just don't have time to manage. We will accept kids older than that, though. They do have to, you'd have to have a ticket for them, but we do have the kid program, and there is spaces open right now. We have enough funds for over 25 kids, full rides, guardians ride, food, the whole 9 yards. So that is on the website. You can go into there and look at what the details are to enroll a kid into that program and see if they qualify. So get Randy Oliver and Tom Seeley. Well, I try to get Randy Oliver. Tom, we'll look at getting him in the future. Um, we're actually trying to, the thing what we're trying to do to a degree is get people that are a little bit more fresh. Tom has been everywhere, and I like what Tom's done in the past, but Tom goes and speaks everywhere. So we're trying to find the next Bob Bennies. We're trying to find people that have a different take, but it's not that we won't have Tom. This year we're already booked. We are halfway booked for 2024 already too. But Tom Seeley is definitely on a list of people to have at some point at our conference. It's also hard to get him because a lot of times Tom Seeley's at another show on the same date as ours. Yeah, Sevierville is pretty. What's your thoughts on OTS queen rearing? Some guys use it, Matt Parks. I've never tried it, not even really looked into it a bunch. By the time I heard of it, I was already pretty skilled at the Doolittle method of grafting. And I mean, I can raise queens no problem. So I really prefer that method. I know that much about OTS enough to be dangerous. So I really don't know. What's your thoughts on seeding and pollinating crops like wildflower seed mix for a homeowner beekeeper? It does help a little bit. It takes a ton of flowers to make a big impact, but every little bit helps. I definitely love dual purpose things that you can either grow for your own food consumption, like pumpkins, cucumbers. They're delicious, and bees love the pollen, and it's good for them. So a lot of squash plants are good for them. Pollen is very, very important. You can also plant stuff like Russian sage. There's lavender is very good for them. Mm, you can plant all kinds of clover, and there's certain types of sunflowers that are beneficial. But I love things that are either beautiful or are edible. So I'm getting dual purpose out of them. But you can do clover. You can do all kinds of different things. But it takes a lot. If you're actually trying to add a lot of honey weight to them, it's going to take a significant amount of acreage. I don't know. Next time we do a live chat, Cajun homestead and beekeeping, I'll ask Laurel about that one. First of all, I'm not sure Cajun homestead and beekeeping will fit on there, um, but it's something that we'll look into for sure. That or you can just get your a T-shirt that says that and wear it at the conference. Some of the YouTubers did that last year. But again, like right now, like with the name tags, we can't do everything. We have to keep it simple because we're talking thousands of name tags. And last year I printed every single one of those off. Laurel and I stuffed every single one of those into the name tags. We had to individually cut them out. And we also had to make sure that everyone's name was right. We spent like 2 days on name tags alone. No, more than that. That was stupid. Yeah. So just plan on us probably keeping it simple. I'm going to lose my voice. I've just about half lost it. Well, guys, I know like so Chris Wright just came in. I'm so sorry, Chris. I've got to get off here. My voice is just about gone. Yes, Yuri, trees are more productive. Basswood trees are awesome. Raspberries. Yeah, my bees love our black raspberries. Yeah, yeah. I haven't been eating these because ever since Natalie came on and did that interview with me and was pointing out my how I chew my food, I've been self conscious ever since. She's just very cruel and not very sensitive to the other people's feelings and just really mean for a 14-year-old girl. um, I was actually texting her and her dad today. They're out in I think Colorado climbing like a 14,000 foot mountain. It's pretty wild. Harry Vetch, yep, yep, yep. Gus is very knowledgeable. So, guys, I am going to lose my voice and I need it tomorrow. So, thank you all so much for again being a part of this community. Beekeeping is not the largest community out there, but I think that just means that we need to be more connected. And our YouTube channel may be one of those places, but there's also other guys out there like Bob Benny. I'm thankful he's coming back to our conference for the third time. I just love having Bob. Even if he wasn't a speaker, I'd want Bob at every one of my conferences. And this year, of course, he's planning on having a booth and honey and shirts and all kinds of stuff. So, um, we've got to have Bob at every one of our conferences we can because he's just a perfect role model for what we do. Guys, losing my voice. Thanks so much. God bless you all. Take care. See you next time.